it's Don Skaggs again for Empowered Inventing, the place where we try to help you help other people by taking your great innovation, the right opportunity, mixing it with sound wisdom so you can turn them into real things like products and businesses that make money. Now today, I want to talk to you a little bit about the story of the what's called the careful Daredevil, and actually the story behind the phrase Murphy's Law. And if you're not familiar with what Murphy's Law is, it's kind of a common, I don't know if you call it an idiom or what, but it's kind of a common saying where you say, well, if it can go wrong, it will. And the story comes, this term comes from the story of a man called John Paul Strapp. And he was originally a doctor, or wanted to be a doctor, and he studied physiology. And he suddenly got interested in test pilot systems as an engineer. And he became very, very curious as to why some pilots walked away from what would be normally devastating crashes, while others didn't survive lesser crashes. And he kind of like us inventors and entrepreneurs, he said, I think there's something to this. So he designed and built and tested rocket sleds. Actually, he's noted to be responsible for saving many lives by developing a lot of really good safety systems for pilots in aircraft. So anyway, back in this day when he was doing this, the common so-called conventional wisdom was that the human body could not withstand more than 15 Gs. 15, gravity times 15. And he didn't believe that. And actually, when he tested these rocket sleds, he insisted on being the test subject. If there was a human test subject, he insisted that it was himself. I think he probably didn't want other people to be at risk, but he was willing to take the risk. And this was where he kind of was he earned the name the Careful Daredevil. And I love this moniker because there's a lot to unpack in this about being, it's almost like two things that are the opposite, but they're put together. The Careful Daredevil. Anyway, long story short, he gets up to 35 Gs. Now they said, the human body can't withstand 15 Gs. Well, he figured out after making certain refinements and certain tests that he could test and survive 35 Gs. So, along the line of this story, he eventually teams up with this gentleman named Captain Murphy. And Captain Murphy built sensors. And because at one point they were saying, well, we need to put some types of sensors in here to see, what's going on when these rocket sleds are going, And if you're not familiar with what a rocket sled is, it's this big sled they'll put, and it fires at this extreme speed and then suddenly breaks at the end. So all of a sudden you're subjected to all of these G forces, which is, the force of gravity times 15 times gravity, or in the case of how far he got it up, 35 times gravity. So 15 Gs. So when I say that, that's what that means. So anyway, he teams up with Captain Murphy, and Murphy's putting these sensors in, and having these sensors all installed into this rocket sled. And they had this failed test, and fortunately there wasn't anybody in the sled at the time when it failed. But it was a horribly failed test, and after the failed test, Murphy was known to have said, well, this was installed backwards, or this was installed wrong. And he said, if there's any way for it to go wrong, it can go wrong, it will eventually go wrong. And all of a sudden that just got, I guess, attached to his name. And so henceforth they said, okay, well, from now on we're going to do everything according to Murphy's Law, and that's how it got started. I think it's kind of cool to learn how things like that got started. But anyway, so what does this have to do with inventors and entrepreneurs? Well, You got to ask yourself, if this part fails, will the rest of it still work? And that's what they were doing, these rocket sleds. I mean, you know, some of it was like matter of life and death. They didn't get it right. Guess what? If they were putting a human subject on there, somebody's going to get hurt. They took extreme effort to plan for what could go wrong. Now, am I saying inventors and entrepreneurs should plan for everything, every contingency to go wrong? No. Well, then you become an attorney and you wrap yourself up in bubble wrap and you don't do anything. There are risks. And this is why I like that moniker, Careful Daredevil. Because you're being careful, you're planning for everything you possibly can. But at the same time, you're willing to take the risk. And that's what this John Paul Strapp did. He was very, very careful about it. He says, okay, we're not going to be foolhardy here and just jump on this sled and go with it. No, we're going to check everything out. Anything that could possibly go wrong, we're going to try to think through. And I think with it, as inventors and entrepreneurs, we have to be doing that. We have to be thinking through, okay, what could go wrong? More importantly, instead of worrying, and this is what I see with inventors and entrepreneurs, they get so far into it and something goes wrong, something they didn't plan for. Maybe something they could have planned for and didn't. Maybe they didn't, maybe they didn't get the right, acquire the right wisdom first. That's something we always, teach here is acquire the wisdom first before you spend a lot of the time and the money. Or maybe it was just something that just blindsided them. Either way, instead of worrying about, oh, we're all doomed if this happens, have a plan B. Plan for a plan B. And I think you should always do that. I've had stuff go wrong where just the entire rug got pulled out from underneath the business. And it's like, okay, what do we do now? Well, if you've thought through, okay, if this happens, what we're going to do is this. I hope we don't get to there. I hope that doesn't happen. But if it does, this is what we're going to do. That's planning. That's double bagging. I think I said in another video, talking about the double bagging. You've got a little parachute packed. You don't want the plane to crash, but you've got the parachute there just in case. You've packed it and you know it works. So this keeps you from becoming disappointed, and it prepares you for pivots. And a perfect example of this is prototype testing. You test prototypes, especially when you're in the Franken-type mode, and you're doing this cheap like we teach, and you're doing it lean, but you're getting all these failures. You're going, I didn't know it was going to do that. Or, I didn't know it was going to do that. And you're like having to change it. And sometimes the pivots are just massive. But it's okay, because you've learned from it and you're saying, okay, if this happens, we're going to go to this. We're going to do this. Same thing with market testing. Market is just like in-house testing, except you're out there in the marketplace and the customer is saying, I wouldn't pay a dime for that because of this. Oh, well, we'll go change that. We'll bring it back to the market. Oh, well, we pay extra for that or more of that, and then you go back and add more. So another thing is deals, business relationships, situations that go south, that go sour. I've seen them happen. Businesses are made up of people, and people are important, but sometimes things just do not work out like you think. And you should always have contingency plans based on that. It gives you a sense of what to do when things go wrong, and that gives you a peace, I think, that you normally wouldn't have. Don't ever make decisions that end up in, well, if this doesn't work out, I don't know what we'll do. That is a bad strategy. So think it through, remain positive, but be prepared for things not to go as you exactly think that they might. And this will help you through the rough spots, and I guarantee you, with every successful inventor and entrepreneur, and if you ask any of them, will all tell you the same thing. There are always rough spots. You don't know what they're going to be, you don't know where they're going to hit you, but you have to be prepared for when they happen. So anyway, I hope this is helpful. I'm Don Skaggs. This is Empowered Inventing TV. Be sure, like, subscribe, share, help other people by sharing this with people you think this might help. And check us out at empoweredinventing.com, and I will look to see you at the next meeting, workshop, maybe one of our online classes, or on the next video.